Hi, my name is Olga Dreiling, and this is my final presentation for my Personal and Social Ethics course at Colorado Christian University. I would like to begin by describing three of the passages which support Christian ethics. The first passage is, "In everything, therefore, treat people the same way you want to be treated, for this is the law of the prophets." That is found in Matthew 7:12. Jesus was a great teacher of ethics even before Christianity was formed. A major part of Jesus' ministry was centered around the Golden Rule and the law of nature. At its heart, Christian ethics is a blend of both virtues and principles. Morality is ultimately grounded in the character of God. That is the ultimate source to morality, and it is not God's command, but God's character. C.S. Lewis also mentions in Mere Christianity, the law was called the law of nature because people thought that everyone knew it by nature and did not need to be taught. The second passage is, "Let love be without hypocrisy, abhor what is evil, cling to what is good, be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Give preference to one another in honor." That is Romans 9 through 10. Christians are called to model the life of Christ in their words and deeds. If Christianity is the total plan for the human machine, we have all departed from the total plan in different ways, and each of us wants to make out that his own modification of the original plan itself, as C.S. Lewis once again mentions. Christian ethics should be based on God's character, and God is unconditionally loving Father who calls us to love others as ourselves. He loves us. His commands that we love our neighbors. Ultimately, not because love makes the world go round, through the result is surely a good thing, but because He is a kind of God. The additional passage I have found is, "I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but not everything is constructive. No one should seek their own good, but the good of others." That is 1 Corinthians 10:23 through 24. As C.S. Lewis states, the individual Christian may see fit to give up all sorts of things for special reasons, marriage or meat or beer or the cinema. But the moment he starts saying that things are bad in themselves or looking down his nose at other people who do use them, he has taken the wrong turning. Paul teaches the early church of the law of nature and that new believers are to follow God's direction and not be tempted by other influences which may not have a negative impact on that individual, however, may have negative consequences on those around them. Christians are called to live according to a higher standard, not with diluted principles, but according to God's will. The three ethical issues that were studied in this course I'd like to discuss are reproductive technology, sexual ethics, and morality of war. The first issue is the reproductive technology. Since the beginning of time, barrenness has been a social issue, and men and women went out of their way to conceive. In the late 20th and 21st century, men and women have more resources available for reproduction. Since the late 1970s, medicine has made some remarkable accomplishments in the field of reproductive technology. These procedures include technologies such as artificial insemination, in vitro fertilization, and surrogate motherhood. So the question lies: in this ethical issue, are there moral concerns and reasonings against these practices? People share different views in the medicine arena, especially it is seen as a great asset in assisting families in their desire to have children. God's creation of reproduction was in the form of a man and a woman coming together through procreation. Procreation, which refers to the way in which children are brought forth in partnership with God through the loving embrace of a husband and wife. However, in our postmodern society, the birth of a child becomes a science, also known as reproduction. Reproduction has become a miraculous work of medicine. Reproduction is a more product-oriented view of children and families and comes from the use of technology in producing children today. Is the medical advances of reproduction a gift from God? Is the development of medicine may be seen as a blessing and empowerment of God to mankind? God has also given humankind the ability to discover and apply all kinds of technological innovations. This would be particularly true of the technologies that enable human race to fulfill its mandate to multiply and fill the earth. My first case study is the reproductive technologies. For most women, their desire is to get married and have a child. Unfortunately, not all women are able to do so. In a case where a woman is single and no longer wants to wait till marriage to have a child and goes to a local infertility clinic and is inseminated, is this morally unethical? Even more so, is this sinful within the Christian church? Ethical support for this case study on reproductive technology is, in this case, the woman would have done nothing morally wrong, as she did not go against any of God's commands. She also did not commit sexual immorality acts. That would mean that technologies such as donor insemination, egg donation, and surrogate motherhood raise troubling issues and come very close to failing outside the parameters. But if pressed, the Bible does not appear to be sufficiently clear to prohibit all third-party contributors in every case. My second ethical issue is homosexuality. In our postmodern society, sexuality has been exercised to its max. In our culture of the Western world, homosexuality is presented as a sexual personal preference and should be accepted by all. Postmodernists suggest that we ought to reject meta-narratives because we are trapped within our culture's perspective and therefore are only able to express our interpretations for the postmodern. There is nothing but interpretation, but would not the statement "there is only interpretation" also be interpretation? Homosexuality has been accepted among some religious circles. There are hundreds of congregations in the Metropolitan Community Church today around the world. The MCC is an association of churches that are attempting to harmonize homosexuality and the Bible. They claim that there is nothing inconsistent with following Christ and being a homosexual at the same time. I've had even Christian friends who asked me, why is homosexuality wrong? The Bible is very clear on the standing of homosexuality. Early on in Genesis, the book describes the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah as evidence of how far and how quick the world degenerated after the entrance of sin. It is a common interpretation of these episodes to hold the judgment on the two cities came about as a result of their sexual perversions, which included homosexuality. Everyone has known someone who accepts him or herself as being gay or a lesbian. These people seem to be very kind and sweet at times and very loving and caring, even more so than even at times Christians. So why would it be wrong? A Christian friend, in this case study, a Christian friend would ask a person who is a homosexual if they would, a Christian friend would actually ask another Christian friend who is a homosexual if they will be condemned and spend eternity in hell, and how would they respond to such a question. The Christian church also fails to love and accept those who struggle with their sexual orientation. The church needs to be a place where those struggling with their sexual identification can come and receive grace, truth, and compassion. I myself had to face the subject matter when one of my younger friends asked why I was wrong, and the individual who faces eternity in hell. I had a challenging time answering this question due to God's grace being sufficient, and yet the Bible is very concise and direct on this subject matter. The central New Testament passage that addresses homosexuality is Romans 1:24 through 27. It is set in the context of the condemnation of those who reject God as revealed in creation and through natural law. Paul, the author, Implicit applies the natural order of creation to condemn homosexual behavior. Male and female were created to innate tendency toward opposite sex attraction. My final ethical issue is morality of war. Throughout the Old Testament, war have been the leading form of death and destruction. The Lord continually had to lead his children through battles and assist in their victories to gain freedom, land, and overcome captivity. If God is a good God and is for peace and justice, how then does he permit war? How does he allow this to happen when he is to defend his people through other means, not just by physical battles and war? Throughout the Old Testament, Israel was commanded by God to go into war. Some of these wars were designed to secure Israel's boundaries and could be called preventative strikes. Others were clearly wars of national defense, fighting off attacks of a foreign nation. The Bible allows the use of force under certain conditions. Then it may be difficult to stop within traditional just war doctrine. My morality of war continued. God is a good God and could not promote and allow war. So, what is the cause of war? Due to the fallen and sinful nature of man, there is now moral and natural evil in the world. The term moral evil refers to the evident evil choices made by human agents. God is ultimately and completely good. In no sense is he an accomplice of evil. God's justice and goodness are perfect. His eyes are too perfect to behold evil. He is not tempted by evil. In him there is no darkness. To complete my case study for morality of war, I brought up the example of a terrorist attack. During September 11th, our nation has experienced one. I remember that very day. I believe I was really young and in high school at that time still. But I remember what it did to our nation and how it's shaken up. Operation Enduring Freedom, the Americans led international efforts to oust the Taliban regime in Afghanistan and destroy Osama bin Laden. Terrorist network based there began on October 7th. Within 2 months, U.S. forces had effectively removed Taliban from operational power, but the war continued as U.S. and coalition forces attempted to defeat a Taliban insurgency campaign based in neighboring Pakistan. Morality of war terrorist attacks. In this case scenario, it was critically important for the U.S. government to get involved in military action as it was for the protection and safety of the nation. At a minimum, the state is authorized by God to use forces to maintain order and secure justice. The state is entrusted by God with a divine given responsibility to wield forces only as necessary to maintain. One of my undecided ethical issues was the enhancement of biotechnology. One of the ethical issues I have had a hard time with deciding between morally right or wrong is the enhancement of biotechnology. In our society, medication and medical advances have become the way of life. We have children on medication for ADD or ADHD. We have adults on antidepressants, anxiety medication, and so forth for other psychological matters. Is medication really the key for healing and actual treatment? So my reason for it is, although there are good benefits to these medications, and in many cases are used to treat serious conditions which assist patients in having a good quality of life, I seem to think they are overprescribed and cause more dependencies and do not address the heart of the issue. Many children are taking ADD medication when other forms of treatment and therapies are available. But overdiagnosis isn't the only reason too many kids are taking ADHD medication. Even among children whom ADHD is correctly diagnosed, medication is overprescribed. My second undecided ethical issue is the physician-assisted suicide. One of the first sins and one of God's commandments is thou shalt not murder. God was very displeased with Cain when he murdered his brother Abel, and as a result he had to pay some serious consequences. Physician-assisted suicide seems to be similar to the act of taking someone's life. Physician-assisted suicide is a second form of assisting in dying, and is a situation where the physician more actively serves as a causal agent in the patient's death. The physician's role in the physician-assisted suicide is normally to provide a medical means by which a patient can take his or her own life. This is very critical as taking someone's life is a form of murder, and only God, who gives life, should have that ability. A life is valuable to God and is in perspective of its quality, regardless of its quality. And the biblical commands against killing innocent people should make society cautious about supporting euthanasia and assisted suicide. As you have it, there is my social ethics final presentation covering three major issues that were covered in the course, as well as some additional social issues that I'm not sure how I feel about just yet. So thank you for viewing this presentation. Have a good day. God bless.